We know that millions of Americans believe in some form of the QAnon conspiracy theory, and that means that there are millions of families and social groups that are dealing with a person that they love and care about suddenly believing things that seem kind of insane. So what's that like for them? How are they dealing with that? Well, we're very lucky to be joined once again by the senior tech reporter for HuffPost, Jesselyn Cook, who's written about this topic recently. Jesselyn, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very glad to have you here. So you have an article, I Miss My Mom, talking to the children of QAnon believers. So there's a lot that I want to get into, but what made you want to try to get this sort of side on it, the approach of talking to the family members, understanding their struggle?
There's been a lot of really important and impressive reporting surrounding the QAnon phenomenon lately, but I felt like the voices that are missing from that coverage a lot of the times are the voices of the family members who are dealing with QAnon disinformation every single day in really horrific ways. And a lot of them are suffering in silence without really having anyone to talk to because there's so much shame and embarrassment surrounding these conspiracy theories, especially when it's a parent or a loved one who's gone down that rabbit hole. So I just wanted to reach out to some of these people and see how they're doing.
So I assume, QAnon's a very online sort of conspiracy theory. There's, forums and Instagram accounts, or at least on a lot of these platforms, there were things like that. Maybe they've been banned. Are there support groups online for family members? Is there a subreddit for family members of QAnon believers?
Yeah, there is one subreddit that kind of blew up in popularity over the pandemic when so many Americans and people elsewhere got into the conspiracy theory. So the subreddit is called QAnon Casualties, and it's just a place where loved ones, friends, family members, spouses of QAnon believers can come together and vent and commiserate and just kind of share the experience.
So overall, you talked to a number of people. What are some of the trends that you saw in terms of shared experiences across different individuals?
A lot of people just said they feel very, very lonely because if your friend asks you, how are you doing? It's hard to say, well, I'm fine, except my mom thinks Hillary Clinton eats babies. Like it's something that's so embarrassing that it can be hard to talk to about with someone who isn't familiar with the conspiracy theory. So a lot of people telling me they were lonely and a lot, I thought it would be hard to find sources who were willing to talk about this, but so many of them seemed elated to just have someone to talk to at length about this, especially since I'm a stranger and I'm already versed in this stuff. So that was something I noticed a lot of, and just feeling the sense of it's just bleak. Like so many of them said they've tried everything they could to try to help their mom or their dad, different de-radicalization strategies, and nothing has worked. It seems the more they try to help, the further they push their parent into the rabbit hole.
Oh geez, were there any success stories of maybe not fully getting them out of it, but getting them to start to question it, or maybe like base their lives a little bit less around these conspiracy theories?
Sadly, no, not. I talked to 9 children of QAnon believers and none of them have had any luck. And that seems to be the trend more broadly. Although I have heard a few success stories. Some people who were into QAnon were expecting Joe Biden's inauguration to be the Great Awakening, as they refer to it, which is this apocalyptic event where all of Joe Biden's deep state cronies would be hauled away and arrested. And when that didn't happen, that was a wake-up call for some people who realized, okay, this is one giant hoax that I've fallen into. I should probably step away and try to find my way back to my family. But for a lot of people, they just doubled down and moved the goalpost.
So that Great Awakening that you talked about is a very core part of this. I'm curious, of the family members of people who believe in QAnon, how many know of the Great Awakening and actually like they really want those firing squads, the mass arrests and all of that? Like I'm trying to get an idea of the breakdown of people who maybe they believe that kids are being abducted, but they don't necessarily believe it's Joe Biden. Maybe they believe that there's pedophilia, but it's not drinking hormones. Like how extreme on average did these QAnon followers tend to be? Did they buy into the whole thing?
Yeah, the children of QAnon believers who I spoke to, most of their parents are really deep into it, believing some of the most horrific and specific conspiracy theories. But I think looking at the number of people in this country who are on that path and kind of as you described, thinking, there is probably a lot of pedophilia and there is reason to be suspicious of this and that, not quite to the level of expecting a great awakening and mass executions, but on that path, I think is really staggering and at numbers we don't fully understand yet.
Wow. Were there people who found a way to just not engage on it? Like, I think that the difficulty might be that people who believe in QAnon aren't just like, oh, that's a belief I have. They tend to like, that becomes who they are. Were there people who found that they could just not talk about those things and maintain some semblance of a relationship with their loved one?
Yeah, a couple of the people I spoke to said that that was the only way they could maintain a relationship with their mom or their dad is they just don't talk politics, they don't talk conspiracy theories. Some of them said their conversations now are about like pets and the weather. So it's really sad that it's had to get to that level. But with QAnon, really no topic is safe. It seems like everything can be tied into the conspiracy theory. And so it's causing a huge strain on relationships all over the country.
And one other thing I want to know, the people who have gotten into QAnon, of the family members that you've talked to, did they tend on average to be people who already had believed other conspiracy theories, that they were predisposed to believing conspiracy theories, or were they sort of coming into this relatively clean of that way of thinking?
That's the scary thing. A lot of these people, most of the people I spoke to, their family members or mothers or fathers had no conspiratorial beliefs prior to QAnon. Some of them were liberals who had like voted for Obama. And it was just, even in the past year, as the pandemic, we saw this disinformation flying around. They just fell deep into this, and it's like their whole personality has just done a 180.
Yeah, definitely. In a lot of the write-ups that I've seen, the pandemic has been seen as a big accelerator of this. Did you gain any reason to believe that perhaps as things go back to normal, maybe whatever effect it is that the pandemic or the quarantines or the economic problems are having, that some people, it might just be a way of processing anxiety in a chaotic world? Or do you think that it's become a sort of more durable thing that the vaccine isn't going to be able to cure?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we will see people shift away from this. I think part of it is just we're all spending too much time online, and that's where conspiracy theories are waiting for us so often. But I do think QAnon is something we're going to be dealing with for years. And even you mentioned the vaccine, a lot of QAnon believers are not going to take the vaccine because they believe there's a microchip in it. So it's something that we're going to be trying to figure out for a while.
Wow. Well, everyone watching this, the write-up is fascinating. So definitely go take a look over at HuffPost and you can read all about it. We've just barely scratched the surface for the interviews that Jesselyn did. But as always, we appreciate you joining us. Very, very much value your work.
Thanks so much, John.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.